Now, a judge has ruled that Kilmer Abrego Garcia must remain on U.S. soil, at least temporarily, while his legal team challenges a fresh government attempt to deport him. The judge will consider whether his due process rights are being violated as the Trump administration seeks to remove him to Uganda. Mr. Garcia was wrongly deported to his birth country of El Salvador earlier this year and eventually returned to the U.S., only to face detention on human smuggling charges. And on Monday, just 3 days after being released on bail, he was again detained by immigration officers, this time in Maryland. Let's bring in our senior North America correspondent, John Sudworth, who's following this story for us. John, good to see you. Bring us up to date on the latest that we saw take place today.
Well, Mr. Abrego Garcia turned up for a scheduled immigration appointment. He's been out on bail for just a few days, of course, released on bail on Friday, turned up for that appointment today, and then was immediately re-detained with those senior administration officials saying that he is going to be deported to Uganda. His lawyers were expecting this. They immediately went to court, and we now have a new order from a federal judge suggesting that that's ordering, in fact, that needs to be put on hold for at least 48 hours. So it's just the latest twist in this long-running battle between the Trump administration, determined and repeatedly saying it is determined to remove Kilmer Abrego Garcia from U.S. soil, and his supporters and his lawyers fighting every step of the way, in particular through the courts, to try to do two things, they say. First of all, to protect him. They think there is a danger to him if he's removed, but also, they say, to uphold his constitutional rights, which they believe this administration is riding roughshod over with a targeted punishment approach to their client.
Yeah, John, remind us why this case in particular has garnered so much attention, become really such a lightning rod when it comes to immigration policy in this country.
Well, in the first instance, of course, because of his initial removal to El Salvador, despite that court order in place prohibiting his removal to that country because of the risks he faced. And of course, straight away then it was seized on not only by his own lawyers, but by President Trump's opponents more generally as proof, they would say, of this administration's willingness to ignore the courts. But since then, I think for both sides in this debate, it has become something of a symbol for the Trump administration, allowing it to sort of burnish its credentials and prove its intent to continue and carry out with its promise of mass deportations. But for its opponents, precisely because of some of those things we've discussed, because they believe that this case in particular highlights the unfairness of this approach, as well as what they would argue its unconstitutionality. And there's one other thing, Sumi, I think, which is the question of numbers. As President Trump tries to make good on that promise, everybody knew all along it was going to be a very tough target to hit. Even supporters would have admitted the suggestion of deporting something like 1 million undocumented migrants a year was going to be very hard. So it has proven. And Mr. Trump is now pouring money into the effort, some $70 billion given to Immigration and Customs Enforcement to help them deliver. But also fighting these sorts of cases in the court of public opinion. Because to get those numbers up, the administration has begun to need to target the sorts of people that weren't really talked about on the election campaign, not the so-called rapists and murderers that Mr. Trump spoke about when so often referring to undocumented immigrants, but ordinary, everyday undocumented migrants that man car washes, that mow lawns, that work in factories. It is those people that the administration is now trying to round up. And I think some people would suggest that the focus on Mr. Abrego Garcia, with the administration at pains to point to what they see as his criminal past, despite the protestations from his lawyers, is part of the reason they are prosecuting this particular case so hard.
Okay, John Sudworth for us. Thank you very much.